stream. Firstly, about veganism, my 2 cents is that I believe that this is not something that you do for anyone else. This is something that this is a personal choice that you make for yourself. So I feel that I'm in no position to impose my ideas on other people, but my objective is to inspire you. If you're compassionate about animals, if you're compassionate about the environment, then go ahead and choose this as a part of your lifestyle. Okay, thank you. I am clearly passionate about animals, and my animal just said hi to me. So let me get straight into the questions. Let me get straight into what I've been asked. What are the most commonly asked questions about veganism? First, understand that veganism is just not restricted to a diet plan. It's more than that. It's actually a lifestyle that is based on compassion. That is a lifestyle that is based on compassion for every being. So it's not just restricted to your pet at home, it's restricted to every being. So you don't harm any being in the process of your lifestyle, that is being a true vegan. That's where the objective of a true vegan is. Now I'm just gonna hope that Maya bothers less in the whole live stream. So yeah, it definitely covers diet as one aspect, but it also covers things like not consuming any kind of leather or any kind of products which you wear that come from harming animals. But for simplification purpose of this video, I'm just going to restrict it to diet. So let's get straight into some of the commonly asked questions that are there. And yeah, let's get started. So the first common question that comes up with veganism is that, is being a easy? Now, if you're watching this and you're outside of India, I could say that it's like maybe because some vegan, very specific niche vegan restaurants are really expensive. But when you're in India, 90% of all Indian native food is vegan or can be veganized very, very easily. Your dal, roti, sabzi, chawal, dosa, sambar, everything's vegan, right? So agar aap usme ghee nahi dal rahe ho and you're not using any other milk product, you're not consuming curd along with it, everything else becomes vegan. So it's super easy to do. Next question that comes very, very commonly is protein deficiency, because subconsciously it's been fed into our brains. We've all seen that picture from our I don't know, second or third class textbooks, where whenever it was mentioned about protein, it was always shown as protein is that one bottle of milk, little bit of fish, and then 2 eggs, and then a loaf of meat. And that's what our picture of protein is. But what typically happens in nature is that any whole foods has protein, carbohydrate, and fat built into it. So your pulses, legumes, nuts, seeds, all of them have protein. Your grains have protein. लेकिन हम लोगों को ये माइंडसेट है कि अगर सिर्फ मीट है तो ही प्रोटीन है. Just a second. Why don't do that? Please don't do that. Don't do that, please. Come and sit here. Come and sit here. Thank you. Sorry about that. So just to avoid that, just to give you a perspective on how much protein, सबसे पहले one has to understand how much protein do you actually need. So a normal human being who's fairly active, works out 1 to 1.5 hours a day, needs from 1 to 1.5 times their body weight in grams of protein. So hypothetically speaking, agar mera if my weight, okay, Krishna, I'm gonna start speaking in English because that's gonna work out well for both of us, or for everyone, right? So if you are gonna make, so hypothetically, if my weight is 50 kgs and I have to calculate my protein requirement for the day, it will be anywhere between 50 grams to 75 grams, where 75 grams is like the max that I would need and 50 grams is the minimum that I need. So I have to maintain somewhere in between. Now let's just look at some typical sources of vegan plant-based proteins and foods and see how much protein do they have. So typically a vegan meal would have like a nice bowl of some form of whole grain or pulse or legume, right? So if you consider chickpeas or boiled red beans or mungo beans, and I'm considering all of these as whole, not the washed, not the processed ones. Or if you take masoor dal, right? So all of these would have anywhere between 12 grams to about 18 grams per cup of protein. So again, if your portion size is higher, then it's very easy for you to complete your daily intake of protein by just using this. I have previously made a video on it with, I've calculated the whole day, so you can go back and refer to that video for details. But yeah, this is like in a nutshell, this is what it is about protein. So definitely, if that there is a myth that you will get protein deficiency from going on a plant-based diet, that is not true. Secondly, the most common thing that was asked was milk. If you're not consuming dairy or milk products, then where do you get your calcium from? Just to break it up to you, calcium, like milk is not the best source of calcium in your diet anyways. Again, this is something that has been told to us, but if you do the maths, and don't go by what I say, just go online and just say Google, nutritional content of milk vis-a-vis other things. Like you take amaranth, you take pearl millets, or you take whole grain, red beans. All of these actually have higher quantities of calcium than milk has. So there you go. If you are a vegan, you're not going to be deficient in calcium whatsoever, because calcium, definitely milk is not the high source of calcium, and so are other things like meats. Okay. When it comes to stopping meats, another very commonly asked question is anemia, and how do you maintain your hemoglobin levels if you're a vegan. So again, understand that there are two factors to you being anemic, and I'm just talking about these are again generalization. It's not going to be valid for each and every human being, but there are two factors which will determine whether you have anemia or not. A, how much iron-rich food you're consuming, and B, is that iron-rich food getting absorbed? So, and the second part is very important, right? So there are a lot of people who consume a very iron-rich diet, but they don't absorb that well. So like in Ayurveda also, you say that you're not what you eat, but what you digest. So similar thing applies here when it comes to anemia and veganism. If your absorption is happening well, then you really don't have to worry about it. So let's just talk about a few foods that are very rich in iron. For the record, my hemoglobin levels, even when I'm like at my worst, when I'm not taking care of myself, is also about 14.5, and it's 15 to 15.5 on an average. And just to give you a perspective, in India, like for women to maintain a 12.5 is like a challenge. And I'm like right off the bat, always 14, even if I'm not taking care of myself. So how does that happen? There are a few iron-rich foods that you have to be consuming regularly. That is beetroot, like being one of them. Soy helps absorption a lot, so make sure that you do include soy-rich foods as well in your diet. Also, which cooking vessel you're cooking in, cast iron vessels if you're doing the cooking, it definitely adds on to iron in your diet. Second, when I said about digestion, a very important thing is that you don't consume, second very important thing is that you don't have chelating agents right after or right next to a meal where you did consume iron, right? So if you want to read more about chelating agents, do go ahead and read about it. So your milk is actually a chelating agent. So if you're consuming something which is very iron rich and then you're following it up with milk, your iron is not likely to get absorbed. So those are also a few things, the factors that are there. Again, coming back to veganism, a vegan diet can 100% suffice your dietary requirement of iron without any supplementation. Now I know there's now coming back to the fourth and very, very important question that is asked by every vegan in the world, that is B12 deficiency. I will come to D3 as well, but let's just cover B12 for now. So B12, everywhere in text you will see that it's written that vegans are deficient in vitamin B12. And I would like to change that statement. Let's say everyone is deficient in B12, not just vegans. One of the reasons for that is that now the meat products that are even being consumed are so rich in antibiotics, or the animals are fed so much antibiotics that they don't have good gut bacteria in their gut. So if they don't have good gut bacteria, you will not get B12 from your meat products as well. So how do you actually work around it? So there's a little bit of a controversy around it, and last time I talked about it, I was into a controversy. But in all honesty, you will not get a B12 deficiency if you are not sanitizing your food too much. Okay, I'll get into details, and I know because if COVID, we have started to like kind of clean everything and use very harsh chemicals to leach out every bit of microbe that's there on our food. But understand that our body produces a lot of B12, but it's really down the intestine where it's not kind of absorbed much. So our body also depends on B12 that is coming from outside. So very good option for you guys is like in ancient India, we always had tradition of eating food that's coming from the ground. We would, drink water from matke ka pani, and we would not over sanitize our veggies before we were cooking. So there are certain things that you can do. Don't over wash stuff. That's because B12, the microbes for B12 are going to come from earth, so that's very important. Try integrate such things like adding earthen pots and drinking water in them. Matke ka pani is like a great example. So yeah, these are few things that you can do. Of course, supplementation in rare cases that it is required. My personal suggestion is just ask a doctor if you need it, only then do it. Otherwise, don't self-medicate, because everything can have like a side effect. What was I going to say again? There's a question that's popping up. I'm going to come back to it. And yeah, also, as I said before, in the anemia factor, that you have to make sure that the absorption is also good. So if you are, if your gut health is not good, your probiotics are not up to mark, you've been on antibiotics for a very long time, for any reason whatsoever, if your gut flora is compromised, your absorption of any vitamins would not be good. Talk about B12 or anything else. So yeah, that's another thing that you have to be very, very careful about. Now I'm going to come to the question that is being asked. The Western imposition of the idea. Okay, so I think I would like to cover this. This is a very important question. So Indians typically have been vegetarians, and even as per Ayurveda and as per yoga, our diet is considered to be sattvic, which is considered to be like the best form of diet when it comes to your health and fitness. And a sattvic diet does have a very big factor of dairy into it. But understand that sattvic also had a definition of how you raise the animal from which you're taking the milk. You don't steal the milk completely from the animal. So you're not raising the animal like we're doing today, right? Now there is this concept of farm raised, farm grazed, and A2 and K1 and K2 and I don't know what kind of milks that they're selling now. एक सिंपल सा फैक्ट है, I'm going to speak this part in Hindi of course. जैसे पुराने ज़माने में क्या होता था, जैसे आज की डेट में हम एक डॉग रखते हैं घर में, जिसको हम बहुत प्यार से पालते हैं, अपने बच्चे की तरह रखते हैं, उसी तरह से ट्रेडिशनल इंडियन हाउस होल्ड्स में हर घर में कैटल हुआ करती थी, गाय रखते थे हम, और उस गाय को हम घर के मेंबर की तरह ही ट्रीट करते थे, उसका नाम रखते थे. जब उसका बेबी होता था तो कम्प्लीटली उस बेबी को मिल्क जो है उसका नहीं छीन लिया जाता था, उसको पहले दिया जाता था, और जो बचता था उससे हम कंज्यूम करते थे. सो अंडरस्टैंड दैट इन आवर वैदिक फिलॉसफी ऑल्सो देयर इज अ way that milk is supposed to be consumed. तो वो मिल्क जो था वो सात्विक था, बिकॉज देयर वाज नो harm, there was no ahimsa, there was no harm, so there was complete ahimsa there, you know, you were not harming the animal was at peace. So ये वाली जो फैक्टर है वो अब नहीं है, क्योंकि आप जो मिल्क ले रहे हो वो आप ले रहे हो एक फैक्ट्री रेज्ड काउ से, जहाँ पे वो एनिमल को कैसे रखते हैं, उनके बेबी सर्वाइव करते हैं नहीं करते, उनको कभी मिल्क मिलता है नहीं मिलता, ये बहुत बड़ा फैक्टर है. सो अंडरस्टैंड this part when it comes, when, and you know, human beings have become so large in number कि उनके लिए इतना cattle raise करना with that kind of love, with that kind of space is not possible. You and I stay, like at least I stay in a high-rise building. There is no possibility I can have a cow at home. So this is where the factor of veganism, I think, is more important, and it's not about this being a Western culture. I think अगर मैं इसको एक इंडियन वैदिक या आयुर्वेदिक और योगिक फिलॉसफी से भी देखूं तो इट्स बेटर टू टर्न वीगन एंड रादर देन, you know, just consume milk that's coming from a lot of violence, right, and a lot of pain from the animal. And another thing is that we always say that, I'm just giving you an example, if I'm eating a papaya right now in front of me, if this is a papaya and I ate it, now you can't really differentiate whether the papaya is me or I am papaya, right? So the process of eating your food is becoming one with what you ate. So the energy that was there in papaya, or the energy that was there in food, also becomes you. So that is a very big factor from a Vedic Ayurvedic point of view as well, that your emotions will become food and food will become your emotions. So if you are consuming something that's coming from so much pain, there's going to be a lot of pain inside you. And I think this is a feedback that I've got from a lot of people. I hope that answers your question. I'm going to go directly to the next. Yeah, so one question that comes across very, very commonly is about weight loss and veganism. Should you be doing that as a weight loss? And do you lose weight when you go vegan? The thing is, it's not 100% true. There are a lot of foods out there which are vegan alternatives and they're not healthy. Just because it's vegan, it is not equal to healthy. And also understand that vegan does not mean gluten-free. Vegan does not mean keto. Those are very different things. Vegan just means plant-based. But when if you say plant-based whole foods vegan, that actually becomes something like where you're not consuming a lot of processed food. So that definitely can be considered as a factor. But 100%, if you go on a vegan diet, you're going to lose weight. I'm sorry, that is not the correlation. That's not how things proceed. One last question that I will cover, because it's almost 20 minutes and I don't want this video to be like of 20 million years. So one last question that I have is, a lot of people, when they transition from a normal diet or a meat-based diet to a vegan diet, they have a lot of issues. So I'm going to cover that a little bit and I'll cover it very, very quickly. So when you make that transition, a few things are going to happen. Understand that meat is always going to be compressed calories or compressed food or compressed protein. And to get that same amount of protein from a vegan diet, you probably need to have this much fiber. Now, if you have been consuming a lot of meat and your system is already used to having that concentrated form of food, and suddenly you bulk up your food and you're consuming so much fiber, your system will go for a toss and you might have some gas, some flatulence. Some people can even get an IBS. So if you've been on a non-vegetarian diet for a very long time in your life and you're transitioning into vegan, my suggestion would be, don't go complete cold turkey on it and just introduce plant-based proteins slowly. Or a very good option is to go for mock meats initially, so that your system can adjust well to the newer form of your lifestyle. How much time you should be giving and how quickly you should be making the transition. If you want to go cold turkey on not having meat, it's completely okay. But don't. So if you were consuming, say, 50 grams of protein from meat and you have to suddenly go 50 grams of protein to vegan, and that comes with a lot of fiber as well. So give yourself at least 3 to 4 weeks to make that transition. Just add the vegan sources of protein like gradually. Meanwhile, if your system doesn't allow you, well, you can go for a supplement. Again, very very conditional thing. You can go for a supplement, but that's how you should be making that transition. And as a thumb rule, one serving spoon addition every 3 days is a very good benchmark. Your system would adjust very well to it. And if you haven't gone straight up to leaving meat altogether, or if you've made a decision that you'll leave meat like 2 weeks or 3 weeks after, start adding more salads before you leave meat completely, so that your system already is attuned to welcoming more fiber into your food. I think I've covered all the questions. I'm going to quickly look at the suggestions. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. And there are few vegan resources that I would like to cover. I know that a lot of you have asked me to make vegan curd, which is on the cards. I have not got the time to make it, but I will surely be doing it soon. And there are a few vegan resources and a few vegan products that are my favorite. Lastly, there was a question about traveling when you're vegan and chai when you're vegan. So when you're traveling, if you're traveling and you're vegan and you want to consume chai, the best thing you can do is you carry with yourself some non-dairy dry milk alternative. You can ask any dhaba wala or anywhere in the world, you can ask for black tea and just like mix your premix and get a nice vegan chai. It works 100%. I have been doing it for years. It works for me. And I will share the resource of what dry non-dairy milk powders I use in the description once the video goes live. Thank you so much for joining me, and if there are more questions, drop them in the comments below and I shall do another live stream probably next week. I'll see you next time.